Joining us on the line now is Jenette Jurczyk to talk about the organisation That's What She Said. It started as a live one-night event that has grown into a vibrant community of women supporting women. At each live show, they hear from real women being bold, brave and vulnerable. These stories have a lasting impact on the women on the stage, the women in the audience and the women in the community. Jenette is the national director of the project and has put together a book, That's What She Said, which is a collection of stories from women in the She Said community. Welcome to the show, Jenette.
Thank you, Hannah. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. And I love the sound of this community. That's what she said. What a fabulous idea.
Well, thank you. It started by three fabulous women in the small college town of Champaign, Illinois, 10 years ago. We're celebrating 10 years of That's What She Said. And just like the title suggests, you know, we don't take ourselves too seriously. We share a lot of jokes, a lot of That's What She Said quips across the room. And we really wanted to find a way to showcase the women in our community. It came together as a live storytelling performance and has grown from there.
So how does it work then? Describe what an evening's kind of performance would be like.
I would love to. So we get together a group of women from our community, 8 to 10 women, diverse women, different backgrounds, different ages, different experiences that really represent our community. And we work with them to find a personal story from their life's experience that they develop and write and then perform live on stage. We like to think of That's What She Said like TED Talks meets the Vagina Monologues. These are personal stories by the women in our community, and many of them have never done anything like this before. But the final performance ends up being about 9 or 10 stories on stage over the course of a 2-hour evening. Hundreds of women from the community come together to watch and listen and support with love and compassion and acceptance. And the energy in the room is nothing short of magical when we celebrate these women for being exactly who they already are.
Oh, wonderful. So you work with them and help them decide on the stories that they should tell and how they should tell them, that kind of thing.
I do. I have been directing the shows in Champaign-Urbana since 2015. And I'm now at the helm of the organization, and we've been growing, and we wanted to see if this performance, if this event would translate into more communities. So in 2019, I launched the very first show in a neighboring community of Bloomington, Illinois, and that community absolutely embraced it. And we just had our third show there, and we're going on our fourth show. And in 2023, we will have That's What She Said performances in 8 communities across the United States. And we'd love to see shows in cities across the country and around the world.
Oh, yeah, I don't see why. I can see it working, definitely. So can you give us an example? I know it's obviously going to be a vast variety of women and stories, but can you give us an example of the kind of story that a woman might share?
Yes, we like to say that each show will make you belly laugh and ugly cry and everything in between. Because we know that, first of all, everyone has a story. Every woman has something unique about them that they could share. And we really try to find something that's going to be engaging and interesting for the audience, but also empowering for that woman. So we've had women stand on our stage talking about really challenging topics like losing their spouse or being assaulted and the healing process that they're going through. And then we've had women stand on our stage talking about the most awkward, embarrassing, and hilarious thing that's ever happened to them, because that's life. Life is hilarious and awkward and funny and sad and traumatic and inspiring and triumphant. We don't need to make up anything because life gives us all the material we need for a performance such as this.
It is so true that everybody has a story in them. You know, everybody has a story to tell. And it's fascinating when you get talking to someone. What I find interesting is when you get talking to someone who you feel like you've known for a really long time, and then you find something out about them that you had no idea about, whether it's a country that they visited 30 years ago or something, or, it doesn't have to be a shocking piece of information, but just something that you really didn't know. And you think, gosh, isn't that interesting? I never knew that about them.
I love that you said that, because we always challenge the women in our cast, in our show, to share something that isn't necessarily already what they're known for. We look for some unknown detail or some surprising moment of their lives that they haven't talked about publicly. We want to find that story behind the story. We like to say that our show is the party after the party, where, the girlfriends who are left at the end of the night, the hair comes down, the shoes come off, you pour your third or your fourth glass of wine, and then you get those real intimate stories, not the ones you bring to like the cocktail party, but the ones that you share with your girlfriends at the end of the night. Those are the stories we really try to represent on our stage.
I bet sometimes you have women that say, I've got a few stories, but I definitely don't want to tell those. You must have some women that are really embarrassed and saying, no, I think I should stop there.
Well, not every story we hear makes it onto the stage. That is absolutely true. But we do encourage women to step outside their comfort zone and to share those things that are a little embarrassing, because the magic happens when you share something you've been through and the women in the audience can relate and go, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. I've been there. I know what that's like. It's horrible. And we connect. We connect as women. We connect as human beings. And then the world becomes less scary of a place for all of us. The whole point of creating That's What She Said and building the She Said project to launch in more communities was to make the world a better place for our daughters. And that's what we're doing through the power of storytelling and encouraging women to share the things that they don't always talk about, that are taboo. I've heard so many women say to me that standing on our stage, sharing something that was difficult or painful was the first step in their healing process. It was a freeing sensation. It was a relief to be heard for the first time and to not carry, those stories inside them in the dark, because shame grows in the dark, but it can't exist in the light.
Yeah. It's nice seeing a different side to, because we have networking events here, which I'm sure you do there as well. It's a big thing in business, whether it's women in business or just people generally in business, getting together to network, to promote yourself or your business in a business kind of setting. So I think a lot of women might be more used to talking about themselves in a business setting, and from the point of view of what they do for a living, maybe even how they got to that point. But this is, I'm sure you do get business stories that come through, but this is generally quite different to that, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're less interested in what you would share at a networking meeting and more interested in the personal, the intimate stories that make you who you are today.
And can you give us an example? Can you share a story that either you or you've heard quite recently from That's What She Said?
Well, we don't like to give too much away for the audience, but I am right now getting ready. I'm directing a group of women in Champaign, Illinois. We are approaching our show on Saturday, February 25th in Champaign. It's actually our 10-year anniversary show, and I'm working with 9 incredible women in our community. And we just had a rehearsal last night, so it's a really exciting time. But we were working with a woman who was abused as a child and spent 40 years of her life living in fear and pain. And she went on a personal journey of self-healing and discovery and came out the other side, not just healing herself, but healing her relationship with her mother and her daughter. And there's not a dry eye in the rehearsal, and there won't be a dry eye in the audience that night when Miss Audie stands up and shares her story. We have a woman who was married and had children, and then realized that she wasn't living her authentic self, her authentic life. And after a struggle and a divorce, realized that she wasn't straight and she needed to come to terms with her own sexuality, and found a woman who loved her as she was. And she's sharing the journey of falling in love with her wife and finding out who she really is in this new relationship. So it's everything. It's all the things that make us women and that help us discover, our unique path in this world.
Oh, amazing. People must leave the event feeling so inspired and empowered by a lot of these stories.
Yes. And we absolutely like to say that every woman has a seat at the table. We want all the stories. We are open to, women of all religious backgrounds, all ethnicities, all identities. We want to be a safe space for women to come together and be heard. We want to give a voice to stories that need to be told. Yeah. And every time we build a show, we're building community. We bring businesses together to support, our show. We bring the women together on the stage. We bring the women together in the audience. We continue the conversation after the show. We have the She Said Project podcast, where we share these stories with a greater audience. So that these stories can be found and heard by women all over. So you can find the She Said Project podcast. And now to celebrate our 10-year anniversary, and I think the reason why you and I are talking today is we decided that it was time to take these stories from the stage and put them on the page. And we launched our own publishing company and are releasing our first collection of women's stories. It's to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. We went back through our archives and we found some stories from the first few years of That's What She Said, and put together our first published collection, which we're really proud of. And this also launches on February 25th.
Right. It must have been very difficult picking which stories to include in the book, was it?
It absolutely was. But what I love is that this is the first of many. So as the She Said Project grows into more communities, and we build our archive of stories, we will have no shortage of stories to share as we produce more books in the future.
Yeah. Great. Well, if people want to get a copy of the book, That's What She Said, From the Stage to the Page, as you said, it's available on the 25th of February, but we'll be doing a link on our website in the bookshop section, tre.radio. And if people want to listen to the podcast, presumably they just put in That's What She Said, do they?
The She Said Project podcast. I have to tell you, if you type That's What She Said, you're going to find a lot of results because it's a common term. So our website is shesaidproject.com. You can find the book directly at shesaidpress.com. And if you like to listen to podcasts, wherever you find your podcast, if you search She Said Project, you will absolutely find us.
Okay. She Said Project. Fantastic. Jenette Jurczyk, thank you so much for joining us. Great to chat with you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.